In part 3 of our celebration of 40 years of Octopussy, we start by looking at the wonderful stunts, chatting to those involved with making them. Sit back, relax, and listen to us waffle on about one of the greatest films ever made.
These planes we used, the BD jets, they were built for a previous, well, when Moonraker was supposed to have been made many films before that, there was supposed to be a big aerial sequence and what have you. And Peter Lamont had built these three mock-ups of the BD jet. So they were actually there in storage at Pinewood. So he said to me, I've got these planes, he said, I built at great expense. He said, can't you use them for something? And that's when I wrote that sequence mainly for financial reasons. We had these 3 BD jets. So we got the chap over from the States that flew the used to do circus stuff with this plane. And he showed me a commercial that he'd shot for a Japanese tobacco company, I think it was. And it showed him flying the BD jet through an empty hangar. And it was gone in a flash. You know, you can imagine he's doing 300 miles an hour. And he goes through this hangar so fast. What was it? Did I see that or didn't I? Sort of thing. It was so bad, undramatic, that they very badly matted some doors closing as the thing came in, you know. So it was trying to make out it was a near escape. And that's what gave me the idea to use the doors closing in the scene we shot for Octopussy. So it's strange how these things evolve when you're working things out. And it was one of the best, I think, one of the best pre-title scenes. Certainly the most exciting.
Definitely.
Yeah, you gave us a glut of riches with the pre-title sequences, though, John. There's some amazing ones.
Yeah, they were fun. And sometimes they, like Octopussy, had nothing to do with the film at all. I mean, an ideal, it's like a second feature. You know, we used to have second features years ago.
Yeah.
You were too young, but instead of a second feature, we'd do our own second feature and call it a pre-title sequence.
I always used to feel like it was the final scene of the previous mission. You know, the mission is just finishing off before the mission of the movie.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, that would have been a good idea. Yeah. The most dangerous thing about it was John Richardson, the special effects man, was driving an old Jag that we bought, and we cut the top of it off, and we put a pole arm in the middle. And John was driving this old Jag, and through the hangar, and we covered the car and the pole arm with lots of people running about in the foreground, you see. So you disguise that, and for briefly 2 or 3 seconds at the most. And then the most dangerous thing was when he drove out of the hangar, the linkage to the accelerator broke, and it suddenly went flat out. And he was now driving this contraption with an aeroplane on the top, driving it around with parked aircraft that belonged to the RAF, and narrowly missing them. That was quite a happy moment.
How did it take off?
Yeah.
Even just then, I was watching it very much with his words in my mind about how the planes carried on. I don't know, I think it was an old Mercedes. And you really have to stare to see it, even when you know there's a pole holding the plane. It's so brilliantly directed. That scene. It's fantastic. And the model work as well with the explosion. I was staring at it thinking, how can that be a model? Because everything around it looks so real and big and to scale.
Yeah, it's stunning.
Incredible.
There were a couple of the Bond films that, I'm most proud of. One was Octopussy. We did foreground miniatures where we would put miniature sets in front of the real set and use the reality of the background in conjunction with the model. And people could never see the joins. They never realized that when the plane flies into the hangar on Octopussy, it was a model plane flying behind a model door, but it was in front of a real hangar with real actors and stuntmen and people. The plane going through the hangar.
I think it's it's certainly one of the greatest Bond pre-title sequences, isn't it? And that stunt is just, like I say, the effects. To hear the stories about it is amazing.
I mean, yeah, we'd love to hear it because it's just so much imagination. I mean, it's our childhood. It's our childhood, this. There's no, like, CGI tricks. This is happening. And it brings you so much more into the action because it's so realistic.
The one thing that we worked out very quickly was the speed that Corky's plane would be flying and the length of the hangar. It would be in and out in less than a second. Well, that's not very exciting screen time. I came up with this wild idea that we'd get an old Jaguar car, cut the roof off, weld a pole arm into the chassis in the middle, put a gimbal on the top of it with a full-size BD jet on it that could bank and move, and then paint the car and the pole camouflage colours, and I'd drive it through the hangar at 75 miles an hour, which gave us much longer screen time. You got actors and stuntmen running backwards and forwards, carefully positioned cameras so you didn't see me in the Jaguar. And I drove through it, I say 75 miles an hour. I did it about 5 or 6 times. And the stuntmen would be closing the doors at the far end up to a predetermined spot.
Yeah.
So that as the plane banked, it just squeezed through the gap. Well, the gap, I think, gave me about 4 inches either side of the Jaguar. At that speed, it was an interesting ride.
Bit hairy.
The last take, in fact, I got out through the doors at the far end, and the throttle had jammed open on the car, and it took me a second to realise why I couldn't slow the wretched thing down, and I ended up, of course, turning off the ignition. That in turn turned off the power steering. There's one of Her Majesty's planes parked on the far side of the grass, and I took to the grass heading towards it. Ended up spinning the car to try and slow it down. But, they're all sort of fun things and moments that you get doing a Bond. And, it's every schoolboy's dream to get to play with the toys that we got to play with.
Everything you see is real, isn't it? It's not like, okay, the close-ups of Roger are great, but everything else, the non-close-ups, are all people hanging on a plane, hanging off the side of a train. I don't know. Even the circus stuff. Oh, that's real, isn't it?
Yep,
knife throwing.
It's a credit to John Glen and that generation of filmmaker to look at the words on the page.
Yeah.
And when going to do location recce's and stuff of that nature and say, right, this is what I want, right? I'd like this. For somebody to then go and say, right, get me some shots, get me some footage, let me have a look at the idea. Or that idea of putting money on the screen. Well, it's there. You're just in the opening sequence alone. You can see where the money's been spent. It's magnificent.
There can't have been any debate when the trailers came out for like Octopussy. If you just saw some guy on a train running on top of a train, guy hanging off a plane, how can you? I mean, everyone must have been like, "This is I can't wait to see this."
I remember the news footages from the time, news clips from the time, or trailer bits and pieces from the time, and those sequences were always in there. We'd seen train stuff before, never like that. You'd never seen that before on a train thing. We'd seen plane things before, not quite like that. That was just lunacy. We'd never seen that at all. The whole idea that could be pulled off for real was just remarkable.
I don't think people talk about the stunts in this very much, certainly not enough, because there's some amazing things in this, set pieces in this film. You've got the incredible opening, the tuk-tuk chase in India, which real. Again, it feels real. They're there. You can see, they look like, it's as though they just rocked up to, you know, to that street on that day, and they had a few actors in tuk-tuks, and then they filmed what happened. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't know how on earth you control that.
Let me just chip in briefly because they're on the tuk-tuks now.
Oh, right.
On my live view of it. You carry on. I'm enjoying it.
But it just feels so real.
Were the tennis references your idea in that action scene in the chase?
Oh, it was my idea. We had to use it. I had to use it as a gag. I mean, anyone that uses it.
We love it.
Yeah, during the chase in Udaipur, he was swatting them off with his tennis racket. All the films.
And when the crowd looked from side to side, you know, like that.
Yeah.
Very good. John,
we used to try and, you know, obviously with humour was a very important part of my films. Some people would say there was too much humour.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Then the train, as we've been talking about, and the amazing shot. I think, John, you were talking about it before, where, you know, a film these days would be heralded for this, where Bond's running on top of the train and Gobinda's running below it, and you can see them both at the same time. It's absolutely brilliant, and, you know, death-defying stunts on the train, and then we have the big, you know, action set piece at the end back in India, and you've got someone riding a horse onto a plane and then hanging off a plane. It's just absolutely astonishing. And I don't think it gets anywhere near enough praise for the quality and the, you know, the tension that those stunts and the urgency and the, you know, the immediacy of the danger that doing those stunts for real brings.
I've had the good fortune to know Rocky Taylor for some years, and he doubled Roger in India on Octopussy. And when he got a phone call from Bob Simmons, who said, you know, why don't you come and work on the Bond? And he said, okay, well, what are we doing this time, Bob? And Bob says, balls to the walls, Rob. And they absolutely threw the kitchen sink at it, if you compare it with For Your Eyes Only.
One time we'd done all the stuff on Octopussy, running over the top of the train, diving over pipes, under bridges. And we sort of got him into the studios and got him on top of the train, and we did all the close-ups and whatever. And then there was one time they brought the whole train, I mean, a big coach, from Peterborough into the studios so that he could climb up and get on top. And he sat there in his deck chair, and John Glen said to him, okay, Paul will show you what you've got to do. I was dressed like him anyway, I was doubling him. So he said, okay. And so I climbed up and got onto the top of the train. And Roger said, John, do you want me to look down at the camera? He said, no, just climb straight up. He said, well, Paul can do that. And I did it in the studio.
The bit where Bond is driving on the train track.
Yeah. Well, we had a car on the train track, which I could show Roger how to drive. Not that there was much involved in driving, but I found the first time you did it and you're coming up to a set of points, you desperately wanted to turn the steering wheel. And of course that's the last thing you needed to do. But Roger was great. I mean, he sat in it and drove it, and he was quite happy with it. We had a lot of fun with that.
And obviously when the you know, the train coming from the other way hits the car, and it goes and nearly kills those two people for real in that boat. It's just unbelievable.
And the car chase with the Alpha, you know, you get a great car chase with the police cars, but it's all again, it's still driven by plot. It's like, you know, Bond's kicked off the train, he's got to get back, got to get to the you know, the air base in time. It's stuff. ticking clock. It is a fantastic film.
It's a lesson in filmmaking, isn't it? 2 hours, 10 minutes. How on earth does he get all this in and have loads of action as well?
You mentioned that some of the stunts get forgotten, and actually it strikes me, I think Octopussy is the Roger Moore film that just gets overlooked generally. They've all Live and Let Die, that's his first one. The Man with the Golden Gun is the one that everyone says is rubbish. They're wrong. They say it's rubbish. Then
it's iconic, though.
Yeah, you've got The Spy Who Loved Me, which is seen as the definitive Roger Moore Bond film, and a film that shaped Bond for many years to come. You've got Moonraker, which everyone says is the silly one. You've got For Your Eyes Only, that's the serious one. You've got Octopussy. I don't know what that one is, because then you've got A View to Kill, where he's too old in it. They've all got their place, but Octopussy doesn't really have a place, and yet it's actually surely one of the best Bond films.
Is it the title of it? Maybe, I don't know. And
I mean, maybe because it came out against Never Say Never Again, but I can't think after all these years that would have an effect, and it did pretty good box office. I don't know, but I feel like had it been Roger's last, as you know, at one time it looked like it might be, I think it would be remembered more because it's Roger's last.
Yeah.
Because he then did another. It just feels like well, for the reasons I gave, they've all got their standout thing in fandom of what they are as a Bond film. Whereas Octopussy doesn't really have a thing, does it?
Yeah. Well, everything. That's what.
It's got everything.
Hey, my name's Owen. I live here in the UK. I'm 38 years of age. So born in 84, 1 year after Octopussy was released. But I'm living proof that it doesn't really matter if you weren't around when the movie was released or if you're a bit younger than the movie itself. You know, it's still as relevant today as it ever was. The movie's great. The balance was struck between the plot being pretty strong and not too unrealistic or silly like Moonraker, and entertainment value was fantastic. So you had VJ, the old tennis player, in there doing a cameo. You had some great actors. So the villain was fantastic, Kamal Khan, Louis Jourdan, or the lead Bond girl, Maud Adams, fantastic. She was really strong in it, but also gorgeous, same as Christina Wayborn. Still have crushes on those girls to this day. And Roger Moore, of course, let's not forget Bond himself. He played this one really well. One of his strongest for me, maybe not as his strongest Bond, maybe that was Live and Let Die, but yeah, I love this, and everything about it was great. The soundtrack also by John Barry, I guess without saying, I mean, all of his scores were fantastic, but the one for Octopussy, for every scene seemed so powerful, so relevant, like the way that it struck a chord, literally, with what was going on and the way that the music was presented. So yeah, Octopussy is one of those movies that I always kind of go back and pick out the box set in favour of some of the others. So yeah, it's one that I'll also be introducing to my kids in due course. They're only 4 years old and 8 months old at the moment, so in due course. But just as I was brought up with Bond with my family and watched into my teens and adulthood, I'm sure they will too, and keep the Bond theme alive really, and keep fanhood going and live and active. But yeah, Octopussy is definitely one you should watch if you haven't seen it already. So go out there and watch it, stream it, buy it on Blu-ray and DVD, which is what I do to miss the commercials. But yeah, love it, and cheers for your post, guys. I love your content. See ya.
We'll move on to like Octopussy and Magda, I think, who are introduced quite differently. Magda is introduced as the sort of, I don't think you ever think she's going to be the main Bond girl, but she's got a lot of screen time in that first 45 minutes or so. She has a meal, of course, with Bond. She have the, you know, the bedroom scene.
Good morning.
Good morning. I didn't want to wake you, but since you're up, we can say a proper goodbye.
What is the time?
Beautiful view, isn't it? I don't know how to say goodbye.
Actions speak louder than words.
You're so right.
One of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life, how she flows out of the window. I think that's if that was like one of the heralded directors of our time. I mean, it's just the shots of that, and of course the fact is brilliant, isn't it? That she leaves the bedroom window in Pinewood and lands in India. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? You'd think from that performance, well, from both of them, these would be two really big actresses, I think, because I think they're genuinely good acting. And Magda is, I don't know, sometimes she's never sort of seen as the Stacey Sutton or the BB or a silly kind of Bond girl, but I've never really heard anyone say, I really liked her character. She was quite intriguing. I don't know.
Again, like the film, she's kind of got everything, so she just gets forgotten.
Yeah.
She was the gangster's mole, really, in that respect of, those opening moments. She's always with Kamal Khan. She comes in the auction, Bond goes over and sees her, and blah, 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 and then off to India, and her job is to get the egg back, and so she's there as a tool being operated by Kamal for the purpose of the plot. Evidently, looking at the script, presumably they thought, there's no real female input here for quite some time. We need to have an additional figure, which is why Octopussy doesn't arrive till much later on in the story. Charged the dinner to room, whatever it was, and I knew the price of eggs was going up, but I think, isn't that a bit steep? But it's a nice little setup.
Yeah,
but she is an additional character brought in maybe to just carry the whole thing forward until Octopussy turns up. But she's always remembered for that role. I mean, she's done a whole bunch of other bits and pieces, lots of television work and some other bits, but she's always remembered for that.
Yeah.
And Maud was very busy leading up to that as well. Rollerball, she was in that, wasn't she? And a couple of other fairly big noted pictures. And of course, she'd done Man with the Golden Gun before. So it's always struck me as very odd. Millions of actresses the world over.
Oh yeah,
She's the same one.
Said this the other night, didn't we, Chris?
It works, doesn't it?
It's a different character,
Yeah. Oh, she's so good. Yeah, just on Magda, she's quite strange, really, because, like you say, she's in it a lot to start with, and it seems like she is Kamal's, I don't know, kept woman, but then after from about halfway through, she's sort of Octopus's right-hand woman,
she's not jealous, is she?
And no, she's not. And there is quite a bit of romance in their scenes, Bond and Magda's scenes.
Yeah.
And in other films there is that with Roger's Bond. If you think back to Miss Anders, she dies. Moonraker,
Liesl.
There's Corinne, she dies. Yeah, and then Liesl in the previous one, she dies. And there is the previous. Not the main Bond girl, but the sort of secondary Bond girl who usually, dies, and that's why they're not in it. But not with Magda. So it is quite unusual, and she is in it quite a bit. But again, she just seems to be forgotten a bit.
Has she got maybe nearly as much screen time as Octopussy back then?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
possibly.
But the one that I had a massive crush on was Christina Wayborn.
Oh yeah.
And Christina was beautiful, and standing near her was just get a photo done and just being around, having a quick chat and whatever. It was lovely. I mean, I'll talk a little bit about the 43 Union.
Yeah, so you were there.
The highlight for me, I mean, has been meeting Christina again and telling her I had a crush on her. And she and I just literally hit it off. A couple of the Bond girls there. So there was Saphira there, there was Helene, there was Alison there. So they were there. But of course, for me, it was Christina. So Christina and I literally hit it off. And she did, I don't say this lightly, but when she left, she said, this was the best. And she goes, you know what? I really enjoyed it because we just got on and you made this so much fun.
Maud Adams is a funny one for me because when I was a youngster watching these films, in the looks stage, which I know in the look stakes, she didn't do anything for me. And then I think I hit 40 and all of a sudden he was like, wow, Maud Adams. And Tom, you've just reached the magic 40 milestone.
Yeah.
You should. I'm expecting you to next time you set eyes on her to be like, "Whoa, I didn't realise that."
Well, our dad, it was always. I remember we asked him, "What's your favourite Bond film, Dad?" And I remember once he said, "It could be Octopussy," and Mum just went, "Oh, it's just because you fancy Maud Adams, that's why."
There you go.
But it was, and it was like, well, no, I like the Indian setting, and I like, the sort of, but
pretending,
yeah, it's ridiculous to say she's mature because she's only in her 30s, isn't she? I think in the film, it's not. It's not.
But it seems an age appropriate.
It does, yeah.
For her character is mature and not. I don't know. She has a lot of agency and everything, so it works really well. And you can. It's quite funny because when they've only just sort of met properly, but when Kamal comes in, her and Bond are sort of stood next to each other having a drink, and they look like a couple.
Bond has escaped.
How careless of you.
I apologize.
Oh, by the way, Kamal, I'd like you to meet my new house guest.
An old friend of the family, you might say.
How lovely. You have a nasty habit of surviving.
Oh, you know what they say about the fittest?
Octopussy, I would enjoy another opportunity to take care of Mr. Bond personally.
I will take care of Mr. Bond myself.
Good night. And enjoy yourselves.
They've got that, that tremendous chemistry and everything. Yeah, it really works.
She never needs Bond, does she? I know some might say he forces himself on her, but she's in control of that. She is, and I do think she's one of the stronger characters for that. And it's a fairly pro women film, you could say, isn't it? Like the Magda doesn't die. Octopussy is a very, very powerful woman who's really in control of Kamal Khan, and she confronts him at the end. Yes, okay, she gets captured, but there is Govinda and him there.
Octopussy's agents, female agents, or whatever you want to call them, they overpower Kamal's palace and everything. They take over before Octopussy does get taken, but they've secured the building, not Bond. Bond does a bit, but he's only going after her.
Yeah, which shows this film was quite pro, quite modern thinking, really, or quite ahead of its time.
It wasn't ageist.
No, it wasn't ageist, but also strong female characters. This film's full of strong female characters.
I've just had to pull over because I've been asked to give some thoughts on Octopussy on its 40th anniversary. This one is just like I can't eulogize enough, and I couldn't wait to pull over and get this sorted and have a chat about this because so context: Octopussy 1983, Rob Parker 1983. So we're both of the same precise vintage, and it just has been with me all my life, very literally, and has meant so much to me. I remember my grandfather pulling out this particular VHS cassette when I was very, very young, and the moment that got me more than anything else, that meant that I was in, and it's a key moment into why I love James Bond, is that moment when Karina puts the moustache on Roger and he becomes Toro.
Toro sounds like a load of bull.
And it's the look Roger gives that he knows he's going into absolute insane levels of danger, but he's doing it because that's the mission. The stoicism of James Bond right there, the willingness to risk it all, to go to whatever level was needed to win. And I was in love, just totally in love from then. Never mind then, the opening sequence was just, I still think it's amongst the absolute best in the franchise. John Glen, goodness me, I don't have words to convey how much love and enjoyment I have for his work, but also how much love and respect I have for that man. What he's done, it's ridiculous. But anyway, Octopussy, everything about it, I totally love. Everyone says, oh, it's really silly, it's deadly serious. Everyone's going to die. There's a nuke that's going to set off World War III.
Let me go, damn it, there's a bomb in there!
Forget that James Bond is in a clown outfit at one point. Because, and even having said that, he does carry it off unbelievably well. I don't think anyone else could do this. Only Roger Moore could wear a clown outfit and defuse a nuclear bomb. Does that convince you? Unbelievable.
Quiet, everyone! Quiet!
the sequences are absolutely outstanding. The music is it's like slipping into a silk, I don't know, oodie, dry robe, a massive silk dry robe. It's just wonderful. Everything about Octopussy is wonderful. I don't mind the jokes, the cheese, the stuff that everyone says is dead cheesy, you know, like don't care. Love it. Love everything. You know, I can take or leave, actually, the Tarzan swing. Does it affect my enjoyment? Get off. Get out. Go away. Of course it doesn't. I think it's just all the relevant beats are in place. Everything I love about James Bond is in place. And I can't tell you how proud I am to share my birth year with Octopussy. I know that I've never thought about it in that way. But my word, what a movie. What a franchise. What a day to be alive. You can tell I flipping love this movie. And yeah, just I'm so glad that we can own it on things like Blu-ray now and just have it forever and force it upon however many children I happen to have. Oh, peace and love, Octopussy. Honestly, just it's top tier.
That's all for part 3, but keep watching for the 4th part of our Octopussy 40th anniversary celebration.